Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett, Power, your host. It's good to be with you here on Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're staying safe and healthy. I've got Judd Armstrong on the program today. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about entrepreneurship and some of his new projects. But the point of the Power Lunch is to have today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, and people who are doing amazing work in the world, have them on the program so that we can learn from them. Pick their brain and get their best tips and their best advice so that we can be better at what we do, whatever that is. Now, the fun part of the show is that it's interactive. We are live on LinkedIn, of course, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and all the other platforms that you can go live on. And we monitor those platforms throughout the program. So if you have a question, interact with us, ask Judd your questions, ask us your questions so that we can sort of get to what you want to hear, what you need. So anyway, I've got Judd Armstrong on the program today. You may know Judd as the founder of Jaybird, those great earphones and headphones. We're going to talk about that a little bit and his journey there. Judd came from Australia. He's Australian. Came to the United States with nothing to his name, a wedding ring, and maybe a little money in his pocket, but probably not much. Starting at a $10 an hour retail job, and worked his way into creating one of the top companies in the U.S. for headphones, right up there with Bose and Beats. He sold that in 2016 to Logitech, and is now working on a new project. So we're going to talk about that as well. Judd, welcome.
Rhett, mate, it's good to be here, man. We got so much we could talk about, and there's so much happening in the world. It's a fascinating time for sure.
It's even makes it hard to know where to begin. But I think what I do want to do is I want to kind of go back and make you reflect a little bit about your journey, because the intro doesn't give it justice, because you don't go from a dream to just one day having one of the top companies in the U.S. and in a sector, in an industry, being able to then selling that company for what you sold it for. That doesn't happen overnight, and there's a lot in between. Talk about that journey a little bit and how you grew as a person, as an entrepreneur, and what'd you take from all of that experience?
Well, it's not like the stars can normally align for us and we can go out and do our dream company or our dream gig straight away, right? There's certain situations in our life where we have to take the positive amongst the rubbish. And when I first came to the States, I was working in a retail shop for $10 an hour, and this guy walks into the shop. And he asks for a paperport tube scanner, which is like a scanner, like a tube like this, like a roll of Glad wrap, right? And you could scan one page at a time through this thing, super loud. And I'm like, what are you doing with this? And so he was telling me what he does, and they scanned in medical records. And this is like 20 years ago, right? So there's dial-up internet. We barely have cell phones. We barely have laptop computers. And so he's wanting these scanners so that they could go in with a laptop to a hospital, scan in a medical record, make it a digital document, whatever that is, and send it online to insurance companies and law firms. Like, I still didn't understand what he was talking about. But I said, hey, look, they're out of stock. Give me a card. I'll order it in for you, and I'll let you know when it's here. And so 2 weeks later, I called him up. I said, hey, Scott, your scanners are here. Come get them. So he came back into the store, and then I asked him a little bit more about what he was doing, and he says, why don't you just come work for us and find out? It's pretty interesting. And so I ended up working for them, and I had a little 3-cylinder Geo Metro, which is like a Suzuki Swift in Australia.
I remember those.
Those things run on the smell of an oily rag, man. I was getting paid like 35 cents a mile, and I was banking every single cent of that. And eventually I decided, hey, I could do this way, way better. And so I went and did my own version, and that same company ended up buying me back. But it was a 6-year journey, and it was a hard slog. And, we were living in a rough area of town, and we had 2 young boys through that time period. So we were a young family struggling to get make ends meet.
Right.
And of course, yeah, any small business that you self-fund and you bootstrap, I mean, you're wearing so many hats, you're exhausted, you're working crazy hours, you're skinny fat, and you're, you just, yeah, it was a rough trip. And finally was able to start making some runs, and we built a modest house in Utah, and then when we sold that, I had a little, just enough money to maybe have 2 or 3 years worth of income to decide what I wanted to do next. I threw it all into this idea of Jaybird. I was running down the street one day, and this iPod cable's just, flapping back and forward. This is 2005.
Yeah.
And I go back to my desk, and here's this wireless keyboard and mouse, even 15 years ago in 2005. And I thought, well, that's crazy. If you can do a wireless keyboard and mouse, surely we could make headphones wireless. So I had to pull together a few different people who could, get the job done, because I knew nothing about it, right? I found a really great couple of guys who knew the press and who knew retailers, who had relationships with, like Best Buy and places like that. Also found a really great design guy back in Australia. I went on a holiday back to Australia, and I was able to meet up with this mechanical engineer called Steve Duddy, and he was with us the whole way. He's great. And then we found a partner in Asia who could use Bluetooth to implement one of the very first Bluetooth headphones on the planet. It was so hard to find a factory that knew how to do any of this. We had to train up a factory who was doing speakers. So, when there's a will, there's a way. And when you feel like there's something placed in your heart, Denzel Washington says, when there's that itch that you've got in your heart that you want to do something, he said that's God's promise sent to you beforehand, that it's already yours. I really believe that. That's a really powerful thing, that when you follow your heart, you're going to be drawn into places that really magnify who you are, and you actually come into who you really are, and you can really give back to the world and in unique ways, because that path is for you and for you only. That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And I totally get it, and totally know that feeling and that journey. I experienced it in my own toy company. So was it a hard decision to sell?
Jaybird, you mean?
Yes.
Well, we'd gone through years of tribulation. We were so poor. We had sold the furniture in our home. We sold our car. So here's a family now with 4 little kids, and my wife and I are sharing one car. Sold everything in the house. We were sleeping on mattresses on the floor. Our neighbors felt so sorry for us. They lent us a sofa. So that we did all this so that we could have some money to buy headphones from the factory and sell them onto Amazon. And there's so many narrow passes you go through, and no one really hears about it. It's like it was a decade-long run. And so here we are now in the latter years, after having product recalls where we ship product out to Best Buy and there's something wrong, and they threaten to end the account. If you lost an account with Best Buy, you're never getting back in. And they're the biggest retailer on the planet. You cannot afford to lose that account, right? So our first product that we ever shipped out, they said, we don't want this. You got to return. We're going to return it to you, and you're going to send something new to us. And by the way, we really don't like you right now. So there's lots of moments like that along the way. So after all of that kind of stuff, and wondering how you're going to pay the bills, how you're going to meet payroll every 2 weeks, and then to finally get to a point where you've really got a great following, because you've gotten your product to be the best on the planet. And even though you don't have money, your customers rallied behind you and spread the word like crazy because it was authentically great. To get to that place, and then also have a really great runway of new products to come, I realized, whoa, this is where we got to sell, because we're so attractive. Plus, it was getting to the point where it was just too much for just for myself and anyone else who was with me. We needed really to go to the next level. So Logitech was a good fit. So no, it was a great moment to be able to sell, for sure. Yeah.
And so what was your mindset after that happened? I mean, and because you're totally out of it now, right?
Yes.
So what's the mindset after you finish that? You've created this thing. I mean, I remember the first time I ever walked into a Toys R Us. Yeah. I mean, I remember that day, and I saw something that had been in our brain, and now it was on a shelf. I totally remember that day, and I'll remember that day for the rest of my life. What's it like? Because I've been through this too. What's it like once you're out of it? You've created this product. You've created this organization, this company. It's thrived. It's a baby. Like you've you've created this thing. How is it to walk away? Like what was that feeling?
Uh, great accomplishment. Not because of the dollar signs or anything like that, but uh, the sense of the peace that comes from being financially free is truly remarkable. To be able to stand independent of any
Mm-hmm.
employer or any need to continue to run your operation from day to day, or any government or any grocery store. That's where true peace and independence comes from. So I went and farmed. I have a great farm in Australia, and sitting in a tractor for a few hours decompressing from 10 years of running an electronics
Yeah.
company was amazing. Oh, can't tell you how great that was. It was really great. And going from technology, which I knew nothing about when I started, to farming, which now I knew nothing about as well. I love that kind of throwing myself into a foreign environment.
Mm-hmm.
Vincent van Gogh, he said, if you hear a voice within you saying, I'm not a painter, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. So I firmly believe in that. And when you explore and excavate your life, create new experiences, it gives you new and fresh perspectives on things, and angles that no one else is thinking about. So out of that farm, I've got a great new brand coming out of that. So probably in about 1 year's time. And it's going to revolutionize convenience food, make it completely healthy and something really healthy on the go, something that you would have made at home, you can have in your pocket. So that's something I'm really excited about getting out.
That sounds exciting. Sounds like you've got some new passions and some new. We're going to talk about those in a few minutes, I think. Um, what's what do you think holds people back in life?
Well, Viktor Frankl, he said that when a person can't find deep meaning and purpose to their life, they distract themselves with pleasure. They distract themselves with pastimes. So if you're living for the weekend and just looking for that escape, you get home and you're like, I just want to watch the TV, or you're planning for the weekend, chances are you're not living with purpose. And there's probably a sense that you're content with life, but you're not fulfilled. There's something missing. And that's because you and I are hard coded to serve. You and I are hard coded to contribute and live with purpose and to live outside of ourselves. And if we're living more insular, living for ourselves and our own pleasure, then we're just not going to be as happy, and we're not going to be as joyful as we could possibly be. So what holds most people back from living that way is
Yeah.
a lot of the time, first of all, when we look at our diet, and are we exercising and getting those endorphins going in our body? And if we're eating rubbish and sugars and all kinds of other rubbish, you're going to be toxic inside your body. And there's no way you can be enthusiastic. There's no way you can be passionate. There's no way you can be thinking about others when you just, right? So the first step is your body, and making sure that you're in good shape, making sure that you're spiritually sound, because it turns out that physics proves that we're way more than the matter that you see here. We're 99.9999% the energy between matter. So if you're not feeding that energy with good, positive, spiritual food, then you're going to be an empty tank. So an empty tank can't serve. You have to be full yourself. So every day you got to be looking for that edification, physical and spiritual, all the time. So that's really important. But then also from the age of 0 to 7, life gives us this very special one word, and it's either a yes or a no. And when you're growing up in an environment that teaches you that life is hard, that you should pull your head in, don't get beat up, get a safe job, don't go out and try anything because you might fail. That's a no, right? But you want to have a yes. The thing is, that all goes into the subconscious, and we live 95% of our life by that subconscious programming. So how do you rewrite that? If life gave you a no between 0 to 7, how do you change that into a yes? Turns out that both of us, Rhett, when we woke up this morning, we updated that subconscious programming. And when we went off to sleep last night, we did the same thing. We went through a theta brainwave state, which is what we live in from age 0 to 7. So it turns out that the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and everything that we carry with us through the day gets dumped into the subconscious when we drift off to sleep and when we wake up. So if
Wow.
you can prime your mind before there's 2 moments each day with great, strong affirmations that you write down, that you're excited about, that you want for your life, and focus on those over a course of a few months, you will find a massive shift in your life, and it will really, really change your life.
Talk about that. What changes do you see? I mean, what do you talk about that a little bit?
All right.
Expand
So
it.
I'll answer that with 3 things. So first of all, Jim Carrey.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Carrey wrote himself a check for $10 million. You might have heard about this story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what happens? He did the Dumb and Dumber movie and he got paid $10 million for that. So that's the power of attaching yourself to an idea that you're excited about, an elevated emotion, a clear intent that brings that into existence. We're mostly energy, so we can attract what we want so long as it's a good, wholesome desire and it's in agreement with whatever's going on in the universe. So I tried that myself. I wrote myself a check that was in the millions. And it turns out a few years later that I sold Jaybird to Logitech for that exact amount, or just a little bit over it. How cool is that? So it works. Visualization, it's elevated emotion with a clear intent. So I've created an app actually that's coming out in a couple of months. It's called Jump, and you can go to my website. It's just juddarmstrong.com, and you can sign up and I'll let you know when it's coming out. But it creates a 2-minute mind movie. So you would write down the affirmation in the app, attach an image to it, put a soundtrack behind it. We're partnering with Napster for the soundtrack. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Nice. And it creates this little 2-minute mind movie. So you set your alarm in the morning, and when it goes off, it cues up the movie for you and you just hold it and watch it.
Nice.
So that's going to prime your mind with everything that you want in your life. And you do the same when you go to bed. And it takes discipline, because if you're 30 years old, that's 30 years of programming that you've got to undo. You can do it in a few months.
How about that? Talk a little bit about personal belief and personal power. Because I think, we all have fears and we all have doubts. But what is the role of what is personal power? What does that mean?
So I really believe that when you're living right, that there is a whole lot more to this life than what we see. And when you're living with good intent, things will pull together and you'll have assistance that goes before you and makes way. And even though it will still be difficult, and it will still be hard, you'll have the assistance of everything around you. You'll have the assistance of the spiritual world to really help you on that way. So it comes down to knowing who you are, first of all, because you're not going to be able to understand what you need in life until you know who you are. And when you know who you are, you understand your potential. There is greatness in every single one of us. We all have something special to give to this life, and we all have a purpose, and there's a calling on each of our lives, and there's more than one as well. And when we can tap into that, Oprah Winfrey says, until you find your purpose, you're just walking around this place not contributing to anything. So she said the most important thing is you got to find out what that purpose is so quickly and then get after it. And that's when you find your personal power, and that's when you find your place of authenticity, and where you can truly shine and be a magnet to joy, be a magnet to people. People want to be around you when you know what you're doing and when you're engaged in the cause that's greater than yourself. So that's where your personal power is found, is living in that way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You talk a little bit about financial independence. What does that mean? And how do you... I think it probably goes to what you were just saying a little bit, which is when you find that purpose and you find that thing that drives you and powers you forward and gives you meaning. That's really when I know that when I chased money, whenever I've chased money in my life, there wasn't any. I know when I was working with purpose and and there was a meaning behind what I was working on, that financial aspect of it really it fell into place. Is that what you mean by that?
That is so true. Yeah, that's right. When we chase success for the just simple purpose of success, it's really empty and it's hard to find, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
When it's very consistent. Anyone who's highly successful in life, they're not focused on the money, though it's important, and that very much drives that person. But what they really geek out about is the value that they're giving to people, that the thing that they're giving to people in their life that's going to change and transform their life and make their life better. That's what lights them up. That's what makes them excited about what they're doing. So any of us entrepreneurs, I'd really encourage us to consider, let's not just be an e-commerce store that sells more stuff like Stuff Mart or Walmart with a brand on it. Let's change the world in a positive way. Like at Jaybird, we revolutionized that the sacred moment that we all have each day when we get away from all the noise and the clutter. We go for a run or a mountain bike ride, or even just some personal time. We plug into some wireless music, and we created a renaissance of that moment in our life. And so we really lifted people and helped them come back to themselves every day through wireless music and a great experience. So Jaybird was really trying to elevate people's lives. So when you're looking at what you're doing in your life, see if you can get that purpose to even higher level than where you're currently at. And you'll find greater success because you have a reason for being on the shelf. One of the great friends at Best Buy that I made, Mark Moziniak, he was one of the executives there. And he said, Judd, this is early on, Judd, you've got to make sure that there's a true reason for you being on the shelf. You can't just be another Me Too next to Beats or Bose or whatever it might be. You have to have a reason for being there to justify us having you on the shelf. Why are you there? You tell me. So early on, that was hard for me to answer. But as I focused on that question more and more, we were able to fine tune and sharpen the pencil and be absolutely crystal clear on why we were there in Best Buy, and we had a reason for being there. So the same thing goes for life. Anytime that we're like a photocopy of someone else, photocopies are horrible. No one wants to look at a photocopy. We want to look at a full color image. And that comes through when we just become ourselves and embrace who we are.
You said something interesting right there that I want to ask you about. You said you sharpened the pencil and you figured out why you were on the shelf. When you did that give your team at Jaybird more clarity on what they were doing and what their job was and what their role was and what their mission was?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Because and you have to actually be very articulate. You have to be able to write it down. You have to be able to print it and put it on a wall so that everyone really understands, because what you think people know in your mind often doesn't translate, right? So yeah, that's absolutely true. That's a very good point.
Okay. So did it change the business at all when you had that clarity?
Yeah, that's right. And it takes a while. It's an evolutionary process for sure in anything you do. Absolutely. I think we always had passionate team, a very passionate team right from the start, because we already had a clear mission as to what we wanted to do from the beginning.
Okay. You did. Okay.
Better and better. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe it's about telling the story a little bit better. I mean, you knew what you wanted, but framing it. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Framing it for the retailers.
These are really solid questions. You're a great interviewer. I'm like waiting for the next one. These are great.
I don't know. Hold on. You might regret asking that, I think. What excites you about the future and what scares you? And I guess I would reverse that. What scares you about the future? But what are you really excited about right now? I know there's a lot of bad news, right? And it's very easy to be focused on the bad right now.
Right.
And I think we're all scared and nervous about something, but I think everybody that I talk to is also excited about something. There's something that really fires them up. How about you?
Well, Victor Hugo, he said, "Those who live are those who fight." And I really consider myself a freedom fighter. And that goes back to right from the start, I wanted to be financially free, so I wouldn't have to worry about money. I wouldn't have to worry about where that next check, the income, was going to come from. Wouldn't have to worry about those bills in the mailbox that you have to go out and open up and get every month. All that kind of uncertainty. And then also just to be able to live life on my own terms. That's where it all started from. And then once I sold Jaybird, I'm like, that's it. I'm going to go full independence. I went and got a farm. It's eco, off grid. It's organic. We have water. We have this and that. It's great. And then as I'm doing that, I'm trading Bitcoin, right? And I'm realizing that I've developed this system that is really straightforward to implement, that anyone can do. It's like 12 trades a year, and it's doubling money for me every 6 months. And I thought, well, why don't I make an app, and I can give these trade signals to people, and people can, we can chat in there, and we can have a little community, and people can actually also get their own financial freedom. Because I know the struggle. I know the fight that it takes to be financially free in this world. And it's hard. Like, these are the best of times, the most prosperous the world has ever been. Yet most of us are living in debt. We don't have more than a month of income ahead of us. And in this new world that we've just entered, there is so much uncertainty about what the economy might hold. There might be another wave of COVID-19 that rolls through next year, and it might take a whole bunch of people out of their job. I don't know what's going to happen, but our job as providers, if we have children, if we have spouses or partners who are depending on us, it is our job to be the warrior. It is our job to make sure that our providing is more than one layer deep. And you've got to have a side hustle of some kind. So that's what I'm excited about, is to be able to give back and to be able to help people get their own financial freedom. So if you're interested in knowing about that, it's just unlisted.io, unlisted.io. You just go check it out.
Let's put that in the chat, or in the messaging after the show, because I think that's really cool. And I think you're right. It is absolutely hard to make it. And most people don't. And I think anything that we can do to help people get that financial independence, I think we should do, or give it a shot anyway.
Yeah.
So what scares you? You didn't answer that.
Yeah. So I don't operate from a place of fear. I think most entrepreneurs like yourself, we operate out of a position of preparedness. So if you are prepared, you shall not fear. So I'm always looking to the future. So entrepreneurs, we're always planning for people's livelihoods, while the employees are planning for the weekend, we're planning their livelihood, right? We're always planning for all kind of scenarios. So if you're a good operator, you would have already had a plan in place for any scenario for next year. And so rather than saying what I'm afraid of, what I'm preparing for is all kinds of scenarios. We have gone from a system that used to be a financial system that used to be tied to the value of gold. Nixon took us off the gold standard, and now they've been printing money like it's monopoly money. Eventually, there will be a time where there will be a reconciliation and a point where it all comes undone, and I'm prepared for it.
There you go. That's the answer I was looking for.
But there's winners.
You didn't fall in my trap. You didn't. I'm proud of you.
Cheers, man. Cheers. There's winners and losers in life, and there's a lot of us who just need a little tip or a little guidance to be the winner. And we're all have the opportunity to be winners, but for a lot of people, Thomas Edison says opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks a lot like work. Right?
Indeed. Well, hey, man, this has been fun. This has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate your time today. I know you're busy, but I do want to ask you one more thing. Is when are you launching the new app, Jump? Is that coming out soon?
Yeah, July or August, I'd say. We've got the finishing touches going in right now. We're doing we've done the integration with Napster for the soundtrack, and we're working with Unsplash and also Pexels for the images and the video feed as well. So yeah, it's coming pretty close, and it's looking real good.
Excellent. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and I do appreciate it. We'll keep us updated when that app comes out, and we'll put it out there for you. I'd love to help with that. So
yeah,
appreciate it.
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, cool.
And thank you for spending some time with us here today on Power Lunch Live. You can check out the website at powerlunch.live to find out the upcoming schedule. And so stay safe, stay healthy, and work hard. We'll see you